You know that feeling when oil prices start to go wild? It feels like the entire global economy is on this insane roller coaster. But what's really behind all that chaos? And maybe more importantly, is there any way to actually know what's coming next? All right, let's get into it. So just imagine you see a headline like this flash across your screen, coming straight from the International Energy Agency. A major conflict kicks off, and just like that, a massive chunk of the world's oil supply is cut off. Now, this isn't just some made-up scenario. This is the kind of thing that keeps economists and world leaders awake at night. And boom, the market reacts in a heartbeat. The price for a single barrel of crude oil skyrockets past the $100 mark. You feel it at the pump, businesses see their costs go through the roof, and governments are left scrambling to figure out what to do. In the middle of a crisis like that, literally everyone is asking the exact same question. What happens now? Are prices going to keep climbing? Will they drop? Everybody is desperate for some kind of crystal ball.
And for a really long time, it seemed like the market actually had one. It's called the oil futures market.
You see, the conventional wisdom, and we're talking about everyone from financial analysts to central bankers, has always been that futures prices are the market's collective best guess about where the real price of oil will be months or even years down the line.
Okay, so what even is a futures contract? Well, it's basically a deal. It's a binding agreement to buy or sell oil at a very specific price on a very specific date in the future. The whole idea is that the price baked into that contract reflects what thousands of traders all together think oil is going to be worth.
But what if that crystal ball is a little blurry? Or, what if it's just plain wrong? Some really fascinating research decided to put that exact idea to the test.
And this is really the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we're basing huge economic decisions on these predictions, they'd better be pretty darn accurate. So, a couple of researchers, Ron Alquist and Lutz Kilian, decided to find out for real.
Now, this is where it gets really wild. They compared the predictions from the futures market to something almost comically simple, a no-change forecast. That model just assumes the price in, say, 6 months will be whatever it is today. And the finding was stunning. That super simple no-change guess was often more accurate than the sophisticated futures market.
And note, this wasn't some fluke. The researchers were totally direct about it. They said that using the futures price as your forecast is usually a worse bet than just assuming the price won't change at all. So the big takeaway here? The market's crystal ball is seriously flawed.
But hold on. This doesn't mean futures are totally useless. It just means we've been trying to read them the wrong way. It turns out there's another, much more subtle signal hiding in all that data.
So, if we just toss out the whole idea of price prediction, what are we left with? I mean, what's the actual value of this massive, complex market? The answer lies in something called the basis, and it's actually pretty simple. It's just the gap between the price of oil for delivery right now versus the price for delivery sometime in the future. And that little number, it tells us a ton.
So yeah, just to be super clear, the spot price is the here and now price. The futures price is the agreed upon price for later. The basis is just the difference between the two. Simple as that.
And this is a much better way to think about it. Instead of a predictor, the basis is basically the market's anxiety level. It's fear gauge. It's a measure of what economists call precautionary demand. It's just a fancy way of saying it measures how badly people want to get their hands on physical barrels of oil right now because they're worried about what might happen tomorrow.
And you can see this fear gauge go to work during big historical events. During the Persian Gulf and Iraq wars, fear of supply getting cut off shot through the roof. The spot price soared compared to the futures price, and the basis just plummeted. But then, during the Asian financial crisis, people worried about a global slowdown, which meant less worry about shortages, and the basis went up. It's an incredible indicator of what the market is actually feeling.
So if we can't reliably predict the price, but we can measure the market's fear, what do we do when that fear gauge starts redlining? Well, that brings us to the practical part. What can we actually do?
The International Energy Agency basically says, look, instead of guessing, we should just act. We should focus on the one thing we actually have some control over in the short term, which is how much oil we're all using. And they've laid out a really clear, actionable plan to do it.
A big piece of this plan comes down to stuff that we can all do, individuals and businesses. We're talking about real, concrete steps like working from home a few days a week, which cuts down on millions of commutes, or hopping on public transport and carpooling to make every trip more efficient. Even things like choosing not to fly when there are other good options. They might seem like small changes, but when a lot of people do them, the impact is huge. It really eases the pressure. And of course, governments have a huge role to play with bigger policies that are already proven to work. We're not talking about reinventing the wheel. It's things like lowering highway speed limits by just 10 kilometers per hour. It's a small change that saves a ton of fuel. Or more organized efforts, like alternating which days private cars can drive in big cities to cut down on congestion and consumption. These are all tried and true strategies for a crisis.
So, we can end on this thought. Maybe this endless hunt for a perfect price forecast is just a distraction. And maybe, just maybe, the most effective response to all the fear and uncertainty in the oil market isn't a better crystal ball, but simply a better plan.